Second module, first essay, main approaches to the study of international politics. What is an approach? An approach is a very difficult job to preciously define the term because it is easily intermingles with a number of subsidiary terms and concepts such as methods, technique, hypothesis, and so on. In fact, the term approach implies a point of view or philosophy or an assumption which one believes but cannot necessarily prove. It is to be differentiated from method. Method is an overall plan based on some approach. Approach is a broader term than method. A method is a body of techniques. Methods vary from person to person, from place to place, and from subject to subject. But in the case of an approach, we do not have any such type of alternatives. During the last few decades, a large number of approaches to the study of international politics have been developed by the scholars of the subject. Traditionally, international relations have been studied with the help of approaches drawn from history, philosophy, and political science. International politics deals with the official relationship between sovereign independent states in the international society. And also it means that the actions and reactions of number of sovereign states existing in international society. Since the emergence of international politics as an independent academic discipline, scholars are adopted different approaches for the study. The term approach implies a set of standards adopted by the scholars to look at the problem and to explain it from their angle. During the last decades, a large number of approaches to the study of international politics have been developed. Broadly, the different approaches to the study of international politics have been divided into two. First one, traditional approach or classical approach. Second one, modern approach or scientific approach. Then first one, traditional approach or classical approach. The classical or traditional approach is concerned with the examination of a phenomenon without attempting to formulate a general theory. It also does not make any attempt at either prescription or prediction. It is, in this sense, non-scientific. It depends mainly on historical analysis. It deals with the decisions and events which actually occurred in the past and not events which have not occurred or which might be expected to occur. It has passed through 4 stages. That means the traditional approaches may be classified into 4. First one, historical approach. Second one, current events approach. Third one, institutional and legal approach. Fourth one, realist approach. First one, historical approach. Historical approach lasted up to the end of the First World War. It laid emphasis only on the historical perspective of an event. The events were presented in a descriptive and chronological manner. The historical approach advocated a historical study of the development of international relations. The central idea behind this approach has been that the study of past is essential for understanding the present nature of international relations. It regards history as a library which can help us to understand the nature of international relations. The scholars adopting this approach tried to explain the present phenomenon in international politics with the help of what had happened in the past. But this approach failed to develop any theory. It was only a partial approach. Diplomatic history alone is not sufficient to the entire course of international politics. Okay, then second one is that current events approach. Current events approach remain in vogue during the interwar years. It is if the historical approach ignored the current events, but this current events approach ignored the past. This approach was as such followed by historians of another sect. They wanted to understand the behavior of states in the contemporary world and then to explain the problems of conflict and cooperation. But like the previous approach, it also failed to give a theory as it never linked the past with the present. Then third one is that institutional approach or legal approach. Institutional approaches are another traditional approach developed after the First World War, and it became a very popular into interwar period. The main theme of this approach was to recognize international relations through international law and international organizations. The advocates of this approach firmly held that a peaceful world could be created only through international law and international institutions or organizations. The establishment of League of Nations also provided a great impetus to the growth of institutional approach. Then fourth one is that realist approach. Realist approach are another traditional approach. It is also known as theoretical approach. It laid great emphasis on the study of forces and influences which shape and condition of the state. The realist approach, it means that the international politics is studied on the basis of reality in politics, that is a struggle for power. Then in political rather than the constitutional aspects or the prominent works which represents this approach include Power Politics by George Scavenberger, and also Politics Among Nations written by Morgenthau, then American Diplomacy by George Kennan. Then the realist approach differed from the earlier three approaches insofar as the earliest approaches were concerned with who did what to whom. And whereas the new approach or realist approach was concerned with who did what to whom, what reason, and also what consequences. In other words, the new approach or this realist approach laid great emphasis on analytical interpretation of the international issues. Morgenthau's theory is also known as the realist theory. It is based on 6 famous principles. Morgenthau's theory of realism, Morgenthau's theory is called as realism because it is concerned with the human nature and also historical processes as actually take place. A nation always tries to maintain and secure the goals or its national interest by the means of power. There emerges a struggle for power among nations. Each nation is continuously involved in a struggle for power with other nations. This is the true and real view of the nature of international politics. And therefore, its supporters can themselves realist. Then, scientific approach. The scientific approaches developed in the late 50s and early 60s of the 20th century. These approaches emphasize upon the existence of a system in which nation states, governments, diplomats, politicians, industry groups, national and international organizations are engaged in interaction. The scholars of international politics tried to the study of subjects with the help of tools and techniques developed by other disciplines. They tried to build up theories and models and tried to explain with a considerable degree of accuracy with the pattern of behavior of various political systems. A distinct feature of various theories which adopted scientific approach is that they made use of sophisticated analytical tools and methods since these tools and methods have been borrowed from other disciplines. This imparts the study of international politics as an interdisciplinary in character. Some of the various scientific approaches are found in first one, system theory developed by Morton Kaplan, equilibrium theory developed by George Liska, decision making theory by Sidner and Franker, game theory by Oscar Morgenstern, communication theory by Carl Dutch. Finally, scholars had adopted substantive issues approaches for the study of international politics with a try to modernize classical and scientific approach. It consists the need of concentrating on the study of substantive issues of international politics. It does not attach so much importance to sophisticated methods and tools of analysis evolved by the scholars adopting scientific approach as to relevant in current problems of international politics. In fact, it asserts that the sophisticated methods and tools have led to the neglected of real subject matter of the issues. Okay.